risky thing. But one of the points that I wanted to talk to you about that though was, like when should corners throw in the towel? Like why you think it should be normalized more? Just in the sense that these guys take these fights like this and it ends up just taking just time off their career, or
My thought is that these corners know their fighter better than anybody. So if the fighter knows that he can continue, he's the only person who should be able to decide what happens to him in the cage other than the doctor.
right,
I think the doctor needs to go in there, and if the fighter can still see with both his eyes, that shouldn't determine whether or not the fight continues.
right,
Because what we saw with Moicano was, yes, he can still see with his eye, even though it's nearly swollen shut,
right,
but he's just taking a beating, and he's not doing anything about it. I think the fight should have been stopped because of that. It should have been ruled as a TKO because on the ground, you had so many. It's hard to say unanswered shots because Moicano was throwing from the bottom too, but nothing was really phasing RDA. And I think, and I'm not putting that on the referee. The referee was Mark Goddard. He did a really good job.
right.
But I think in between rounds, if I'm the doctor, I go out there and say, hey. And at one point, Mark Goddard said, hey, I'm going to give you 30 seconds in this next round, and if you don't show me something, if you don't show me a fight, then I'm stopping it. And I think the doctor should start saying that too.
Right.
The doctor should start going in there in between rounds and saying, like, hey, if you don't pick it up, get it together this round, that's it, because we can't see another round like that.
Right.
So if especially in a 5-round fight, it's 5 rounds of that. So by the 3rd or 4th round, after seeing him get beat every single round, why put him through another 5 or 10 minutes of it?
Right.
And that'll also stop referees from being so heavily criticized for it.
It gets
Because you look at
scrutinized,
Herb Dean
quick.
with Moutinho and O'Malley.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm one of the people who critiqued his decision. But you'll see less of that if the doctors are allowed to go in there and say, hey, no, we gave you an extra round and you couldn't get it together, so no.
Do you feel like it's kind of hard though for doctors because in the sense that hey, like they need to go because like they could be not even fans of the sport. They just think okay, these guys are just a bunch of brawlers. Like they're just gonna go in there. Like they won't know when to stop the fight.
They don't need to be fans of the sport. They need to understand brain trauma because right now that's one of the biggest things going on with medical advancement is that we're learning so much about brain trauma and concussions. Obviously, the sport that's going to happen.
Right.
So if someone gets a cut on their head or a swollen eye, it doesn't necessarily mean the fight needs to be over. But if you're going out there and getting your head smashed into the canvas for 10 minutes, 2 rounds, maybe even 15 minutes,
Right.
three rounds, then maybe you should start consider, hey, you're not doing anything about it. This is taking years off your life. You need to stop.
Well, the reason why I ask that though is I feel like sometimes they're like these doctors don't understand what they're looking at. Because you look at Brian Ortega in the Volkanovski fight, like that fight should have got stopped after that round. It shouldn't have went on. Volkanovski even pointed out that, and it was on camera, and it came out after the fight. In front of the doctor, Herb Dean was like, "How many fingers am I holding up?" And he says 1, and then he walks away and says 2.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't even know what was going on. And then you look at like fights like that, it's like, man, like what's going on right here? It's like, and we've seen doctors do good jobs, like in the Nate Diaz versus Masvidal fight. Like I thought that doctor did a good job by stopping that fight. And people that get mad about that, go back and watch that first round. You'll see that cut, and then you see it again at the end of the second round, and then it's that cut. The cut man just did a good job of just keeping that skin, his eyebrow in place from not flapping all over the place like it was in the first round. It's just it's just more so. It's like I feel like if the athletic commissioner are gonna bring doctors in, they need to make sure that these doctors understand what they're looking at. Because like they understand boxing. Because we've seen it, like you've seen it in person with the last with that last El Tigre fight that we were at. And so I mean, doctors will step in and be like, no, that's enough.
Because they don't want to see these people getting beat.
Right. And so it's like so those doctors understand that, but when it comes to MMA, they don't understand stepping into that fight and calling off the fight. Like we've seen it for a couple. When it comes down to somebody getting the shit beat out of them, like like Moicano or Ortega, like I don't. It's where it gets kind of different. But also with the referee though, it's like Mark Goddard's a great referee. He's my favorite referee. I think he always makes like down the middle calls. And like, cause I used to be a big fan of Herb Dean, but Herb Dean's been fucking up since like 2016, like realistically. And so, it's one of those things where it's like I feel like they're like Mark Goddard's also a former fighter, just like Herb Dean, but and he trains guys. Like he understands like we could keep this fight going or not. And it's I wish referees would do what he did more, is saying like I need to see some more life value or I'm stopping this fight. You know, like we saw with the Raymond Daniels fight.
Yeah.
You know, I think that should be normalized to let these guys know, because like they're fighters, man. They're gonna go out as on their shield if they have to.
Yeah. Most
They're not gonna
like
quit. You know.
90% of these guys, they're
Yeah.
like, I'm not a punk. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna fight.
But like back into the to the corner though, I feel like your corner should also look out for your best interest.
They should,
Right.
but it's hard because you have some fighters like look at the Anderson Silva Chael fight.
Yeah.
Anderson was getting his head pounded.
Yeah.
And there were several times where it looked like he may have been out.
Right.
And their corner was like, this is Anderson Silva. We know exactly who he is. He can
Yeah.
handle this. And he went out there and he got the finish.
I think Anderson's a bad one to point out though, because he even said he's gonna get him in a triangle, and that's in the corner knew it. So,
Well, I'm all I'm saying is the corner knows who their people are. They also understand that these guys are fighters, like we
Yeah.
were saying. They're fighters. They're not going to want to quit.
Right.
If the corner quits, that's just it puts such a damper on them. If the fighter doesn't want to quit, it could really mess with the relationship between coach and fighter, and you don't want that.
I think it should be normalized more though, like throwing in the towel, in the sense that like if I see my guy out there, like of course I'm not gonna stop the fight unless like he's getting this shit beat out of him. Like Moicano's corner, they should have stopped the fight. You know, like being like, you know what, man, like look, like you're trying to have a career, you're trying to make a move right here at 155. Like don't worry, we'll just, it is what it is. We'll get you back in the gym. You'll be healthy. You'll be back in the gym within a couple weeks, and we can get this fight back, because he took this fight on 5 days notice. You know. Like another one is like, I'm not sure of the coach's name, but I know he trains Anthony Smith and Alex Hernandez. I'm not a big fan of him, just because the fact that we saw with Anthony Smith, he went out there and he got the shit beat out of him for of like fucking like 3 rounds against Glover Teixeira, you know. And then we see Alex Hernandez go out there when he fought Moicano this last go around, and his coach couldn't even get him to focus. Obviously, he was still stung. He was stunned from what that first round happened, because he got hit pretty hard. And so I feel like with stuff like that, like you have to recognize, like I can't send my guy back out there to keep getting beat up like this. You know, like we've seen even the Diaz brothers, like Nate Diaz when he fought Josh Thompson, like his coach threw in the towel in that fight. Thing is, the referee didn't see that because he's already going to stop the fight. And so I feel like it's like one of those things where it's like I understand you would be frustrated with your coach for throwing in the towel, but you have to understand like they're gonna make sure you can talk the same in a couple years. Like they're looking out for your best interests, and I feel like coaches should also hold that responsibility to know, look, like I'm not trying to see this guy's handshake for the after he decides to retire. You know.
Yeah. So yeah, let us know your thoughts on what should be done about fighters going out there and getting hit too much. And should corners throw in towels? Should doctors be held responsible for that decision?